You wake before the sun, not because you choose to, but because that's what millers' wives do. The chill clings to your skin, and your breath fogs slightly in the cold stone room. It's not freezing yet, but it's close. Your name isn't remembered by history. Most likely no one ever wrote it down. But today, we're going to walk in your shoes anyway. We'll trace the unspoken rhythms of your life as the wife of a miller, one of the busiest, most physically exhausting, yet completely overlooked roles in a medieval village. Outside, the river creaks faintly beneath its thin skin of ice. The wooden wheel attached to your husband's mill groans with the burden of damp frost. It has not yet turned this morning, but soon it will. And when it does, so begins the labor of another day. Grinding wheat into flour, measuring sack loads, collecting tolls from peasant farmers, and trying to avoid disputes you didn't start, but always seem to finish. You light the kitchen fire from the coals left in the hearth overnight. The trick is to breathe softly on them while cradling a bit of dry moss and straw. Too hard, and you blow them out. Too soft, and nothing happens. It takes patience. Everything in your life takes patience. You've likely borne children already. Maybe 3, maybe 7, maybe only one who lived past the first winter. There are no records here, but the ache in your back and the way your fingers curve unnaturally from years of flour sifting suggest you've lived more than one life in the span of 25 years. The mill is the center of village life, not just because people need bread, but because the miller collects a toll, 1 part in 16. That's the usual. Farmers come with their grain, and you and your husband keep 1/16 of the flour milled. People don't like this. They mutter about cheating, accuse your husband of skimming more than he should. They don't say it to his face often, but you hear the whispers. Sometimes you hear them in church. Worse still, sometimes they blame. You women in your position aren't supposed to meddle in business. But you do. You must. When your husband is tending the wheel, inspecting the grain, or more often than not arguing with the reeve about taxes, you manage the house, the ledger, and sometimes the customers. If the sacks come up light, you're blamed. If they spill, you clean them up. If someone complains that the toll was wrong, they'll remember your face first. The day properly begins when the first farmer arrives. His cart groans under the weight of damp, itchy sacks. You open the side door and help him unload. The smell of raw grain, musky, warm, slightly sour, clings to your hands all day. Your sleeves are already dusted with flour, your fingers red with cold. You take his name, or rather nod when he says it, because you've known him since you were both children. He doesn't speak much. Neither do you. Your oldest child, if you have one, is probably nearby. Perhaps a girl of 10, tall for her age and already showing signs of the same work-worn posture you carry. Or perhaps it's a boy, sent to feed the chickens or sweep grain dust from the lower floor. Either way, children in the house mean help, and worry in equal measure. They're useful for carrying water and stoking fires, but they also cough in the night and eat when there isn't much to go around. If your husband drinks, and many millers do, you've likely shielded your children, more than once from his shouting, sometimes from more than shouting. Inside the mill itself is loud when it's turning. It hums and creaks and drones endlessly. That sound becomes part of your life. Some women live beside church bells, others beside gallows. You live beside a wheel that never stops, unless it's broken or frozen. When it does stop, you worry, because no milling means no bread, and no bread means no coins, and no coins means the man from the manor house will come knocking. You step into the storeroom to count the flour sacks. They line the walls, each one heavy enough to crush your foot if you dropped it. You hoist them anyway. Your arms are stronger than anyone assumes. Flour dust is in your hair, your teeth, your lungs. You cough at night, especially in winter. Everyone assumes it's just the cold. You can't read, but you know how to tally. Scratches on a wax tablet, stones moved from one pile to another, a keen sense of who owes what. You keep track of the tolls while your husband talks business. If he dies before you, and he might with that cough and his swollen joints, this will be your burden alone. But no one will call you Miller. They'll call you widow, and they'll expect you to sell the business or marry again. Quickly, today, you've already baked 2 loaves, stirred oat porridge, patched your daughter's shoe, and started spinning thread. The firewood is running low, so you'll need to collect kindling later unless the neighbor boy comes by with a bundle for trade. Your hands are cracked. You rub tallow into them at night, but it doesn't help much. You stopped hoping for soft hands long ago. Around midday, the second farmer arrives. He brings a complaint. His sack was short last week. He says it gently, but the implication is sharp. He wants to see the scale. You bring it out. It's balanced, barely. The iron weights have rusted in the cold, and the beam creaks as it settles. He squints suspiciously. You say nothing, only adjust the counterweight slightly, just enough to ease his concern. You know the line between confidence and confrontation. Too much protest, and he'll talk. Too little, and he'll come back angry. He leaves. You exhale. The child, your daughter, is watching. You look at her. Not with warmth, not with fear, just with recognition. She'll live this life, or something like it. Perhaps she'll marry a tanner, or a carpenter. If she's lucky, she'll marry someone who doesn't drink, who doesn't shout. But luck is rare. You were lucky once too, you think. Maybe. Afternoon brings a lull. You use the time to mend a torn tunic, rewrap some dried herbs in linen, and boil a bone for soup. There's not much meat left on it, but the marrow might flavor the broth. You haven't eaten yet. You often don't until evening. Not out of selflessness exactly, just out of rhythm. Feeding others first is just the shape your day takes. You don't question it anymore. Then the boy from the manor house arrives. He's on a thin horse, too proud for its bones. He hands you a scroll, something from the reeve. More taxes. Always more taxes. You nod, take the scroll, and say you'll give it to your husband. You won't. Not right away. You'll wait until after supper, until the children are asleep, until he's in a better mood, if he ever is. The sky darkens. You light a lantern and hang it near the mill door. Farmers who come late are expected to bring their own light, but you leave it anyway. One woman was caught on the path last year and never made it home. No one talks about her anymore, but you remember. At last, the wheel slows. The final sacks are carried into the storeroom. The door is bolted. You rub your arms, scratch your scalp, feel the flour that never comes off. You look out across the water. It's quiet now, save for the occasional cluck of a chicken or hoot of an owl. Inside, the children sleep, the fire flickers, and your husband snores in the corner. You sit, just for a moment. You've earned it. You wonder, not for the first time, what would happen if you ran away? But where would you go? And who would mill the grain? And what if deep down you didn't want to run? Not because you're content, but because you've forgotten what it feels like to choose. The next day begins just as the last ended. Quietly, coldly, with the same bone-deep weariness you don't have time to feel. The fire in the hearth needs coaxing back to life. You don't sigh anymore. Sighing wastes breath, and breath is needed for carrying water, lifting sacks, and explaining, again, that the toll is 1/16, not more. Your husband is awake, but not yet working. He rubs his swollen knees and curses the weather. You do not reply. You just ladle the porridge into the same chipped bowl he uses every day. He doesn't thank you. He never has. But he eats it anyway. The toll system is supposed to be simple. Farmers bring grain. You keep a portion of the milled flour. It's your family's livelihood. But lately, the accusations have come more frequently. Quiet ones, whispered ones. Some say your husband takes too much. Some say he's bribing the Reeve to look the other way. Some say he's not the one doing the cheating, it's you. Because when women touch business, people get suspicious. You've begun keeping your own tally now. Carefully hidden. A piece of soft bark, scratched with charcoal and tucked behind. A loose stone in the wall. You don't know what you'll do with it yet. Maybe nothing. But it's the only place in this village where your truth lives. Today brings a new kind of problem. A visiting monk from the nearby priory arrives with a small sack of grain and a larger sense of importance. His robes are patched but clean. He announces himself with the forced politeness of someone unused to being challenged. The miller, he says, is known to take liberties with the church's toll. You say nothing. You meet his eyes only, briefly. Then you nod toward the mill, where your husband is tending to a clogged chute. The monk follows the sound. The toll is, technically, waived for the church, but only on feast days. This monk is here on a Wednesday, not a feast day, not even a saint's day. You know this because you keep track, not out of piety, but because every exemption means less. Flour and less flour means fewer coins, and fewer coins means stretching a soup even thinner. Later, you hear raised voices, then silence, then footsteps. The monk leaves, unsatisfied. Your husband mutters about arrogance and heresy, and then laughs dryly. He'll be back, he says. They always are. You go back to work. There are sacks to weigh. The scale's beam squeaks in protest as you adjust the iron weights. A farmer named Oswin brings in a larger load than usual, 7 sacks. He's proud of them. You've known Oswin since you were both small. He used to throw pebbles at your window and then run away laughing. Now he has 3 children and a limp from falling off a cart. He smiles at you, but his smile doesn't reach his eyes. 7 sacks, he says. Don't take more than your share, eh? It's meant as a joke. Almost, you nod. You always nod, but when you pour the grain into the hopper, you notice something. The mix is off. There's chaff, too much of it. He's bulked the grain with straw again, trying to trick the stones into producing more flour from less wheat. It's a common trick, and it's always the miller's fault when the flour runs thin. You make a note in your hidden tally. Oswin, 7 sacks. Chaff in 2. You won't tell your husband, not yet. He'll argue, loudly, possibly in public. And when farmers argue, they often throw fists, and fists bruise. And bruises don't heal quickly, not when you're lifting sacks and swinging cranks every day. Instead, you quietly adjust the toll, not 1/16 this time. You take slightly less. Let Oswin feel like he's won. That way he won't talk. Later, you patch a hole in your husband's tunic while he sharpens the millstones. The work is loud, rhythmic, almost musical. You hum softly, a tune you don't remember learning. Maybe your mother sang it. Maybe it came from somewhere older. Music drifts that way sometimes, through generations, attached to no one and everyone, as the wheel spins. You think about the ledger the manor Reeve keeps. It's full of names and numbers. But it doesn't include what matters. It doesn't record bruises, stillbirths, or meals skipped so children could eat. It doesn't track the small victories, like a fire started on the first try, or the rare evening when no one coughed. You wonder what it would say about you, if it said anything at all. Your neighbor Alfreda visits in the afternoon. She brings cheese to trade for flour. Her hands shake. Her eldest daughter died last spring, and she hasn't spoken a full sentence since. But she smiles at you, a fragile thing, and you give her more flour than she earned. You don't write this down. There are rules, and then there is kindness. And the ledger doesn't need to know everything. Your daughter is combing wool in the corner. She hums the same tune you did earlier. She must have heard you. You smile a little. She doesn't notice. At dusk, a rat scurries across the storage floor. You move quickly, grab the broom, but it escapes into the wall. It'll be back. It always is. You set a trap with stale oats and a bent nail. Then you check the sacks, one by one, to make sure they're intact. A hole in a flour sack means waste. Waste means hunger. Tonight, there's barley stew. You sit beside the fire and eat slowly. Your husband is already asleep, his snores echoing like the creak of the mill wheel. Your daughter leans against your shoulder, warm and small, and still somehow your child, though the years keep stealing pieces of her. You think about the monk again, about Oswin's lie, about the way you keep this business alive without ever being called its owner. And you wonder, if you disappeared tonight, what would happen to the mill? Would it stop turning? Or would it grind on without a pause, without a memory? You wake in darkness, not from sleep, but from the bell. It tolls 5 times, low and slow. You do not sigh. That would be indulgent. You simply rise. Sleep, in this place, is not a comfort. It is a duty fulfilled. Like everything else behind the convent walls. You are Sister Agnes, though that is not the name your mother gave you. That name was buried with your hair, your dresses, and your dowry, such as it was when you were offered to the convent at age 12, or perhaps it was 13. You're not certain anymore. It is winter now, and the floors are cold beneath your bare feet. The convent saves its firewood for cooking, not comfort. The other sisters stir beside you, shrouded in their wimples and woolen habits. The dormitory smells of wax, damp stone, and quiet breath. Matins begins in the chapel. You stand in the back, not by choice, but by order of age. Your voice joins the others, a thin thread in the tapestry of Latin chant. You do not understand every word, but the rhythm is as familiar to you as your own heartbeat. Domen labia mea aperis. You say the words, but your mind is elsewhere. On the laundry you'll scrub later, on the nun who fainted last week, during prayers, on the goat that escaped the pen and had to be chased for an hour across the convent garden. Because holiness is not the absence of distraction. It is continuing despite it. After matins, you eat. A bowl of weak gruel, a crust of bread. No meat, of course. It's Lent. You break your fast with silence. The youngest girl, Sister Bertha, spills her bowl. The elder, Sister Marjorie, frowns but says nothing. Discipline is often silent here. Then chores begin. You are assigned to the laundry this week. There is always laundry, and always mud. The convent is built near a stream, which overflows in spring. The drying line is a wooden pole between 2 apple trees. The wind is unkind. The soap is lye and water, rough on skin, stinging in cuts. Your hands crack. You wrap them at night. In the morning, the bandages are stiff with dried blood and old wool. You do not complain. Complaints are spoken, and speech is rationed like butter. The convent rule allows speaking only at designated times. Meals, prayers, work, these are silent. The idea is to quiet the self. But silence, you've learned, can become noise too. The kind that rattles inside your skull when all you want is a voice, a story, a name. Names are rare here. You are sister. They are sister. The woman who taught you to read Psalms is sister. So is the one who beats the rugs and grumbles under her breath. The girl who once wept in her sleep and never said why, sister. You are all fragments of a whole, and no part is more than the whole. That's what you've been told. Once, long ago, you snuck a mirror into the laundry shed. It was polished brass, left behind by a visiting noblewoman. You stared at it, not with vanity, though perhaps a little, but with confusion. Your own face had become strange to you. The softness was gone, the angles sharper, your hair hidden, your mouth a straight line. You looked like everyone else. You turned the mirror over and never looked again. In the afternoon you scrub floors. A noblewoman is visiting in 3 days. That means double work and triple worry. Her donation might fund the new roof, or she might complain about the cheese. It depends, you think, on how many times she's fasted lately. The prioress is strict, but not unkind. She was once married, lost 2 children, and entered the convent at 35. She rarely speaks of her life before, but sometimes, when she thinks no one is watching, she touches a ring she no longer wears. There are secrets everywhere here, not just the ones sealed in confession, but the kind that hang like laundry between 2 trees, visible, mundane, impossible to ignore. Evening brings vespers, candles flicker. Your voice is hoarse, your hands ache, but the chant is soothing in its way. You like the Psalms, even if you don't always believe them. The candle wax pools on the stone floor. A moth flutters near the flame and singes its wing. You watch it fall. No one else notices. Later, you tend to the herb garden. It's mostly frostbitten now, but the rosemary still holds on. You whisper to the plants, quietly. This is allowed. Plants do not report back. They do not remind you to be humble. One of the sisters, the old one with the crooked back, tells stories and gestures. Once, she traced the shape of a fish with her fingers and pointed to the cellar. You understood. There was salted herring, a gift from the village. You shared it in silence, eyes smiling, mouths still. At night, you write. There is a single book. You are allowed to copy, A Lives of the Saints, its margins filled with tiny birds drawn by a sister long dead. You like her birds more than the words. They seem more honest. You dip your quill carefully. Ink is precious. You form the letters slowly, deliberately. Each one must match the one before. Uniformity is devotion. But tonight, something strange. Your hand slips. The letter bends. A curl where there should be none. You start to scrape it clean, but stop. Instead, you let it stay. One curl. A flourish. A mark that says, I was here. You hide the page at the back of the stack. No one will notice. But you will. You blow out the candle and return to your mat. The cold finds your skin easily. Sleep will come. But before it does, you wonder. What? If silence isn't just absence, what if it's a language no one taught you how to speak? You wake in darkness, not from sleep, but from the bell. It tolls 5 times, low and slow. You do not sigh. That would be indulgent. You simply rise. Sleep in this place is not a comfort. It is a duty fulfilled. Like everything else behind the convent walls. You are Sister Agnes, though that is not the name your mother gave you. That name was buried with your hair, your dresses, and your dowry, such as it was, when you were offered to the convent at age 12. Or perhaps it was 13. You're not certain anymore. It is winter now, and the floors are cold beneath your bare feet. The convent saves its firewood for cooking, not comfort. The other sisters stir beside you, shrouded in their wimples and woolen habits. The dormitory smells of wax, damp stone, and quiet breath. Matins begins in the chapel. You stand in the back, not by choice, but by order of age. Your voice joins the others, a thin thread in the tapestry of Latin chant. You do not understand every word, but the rhythm is as familiar to you as your own heartbeat. Domine, labia mea aperis. You say the words, but your mind is elsewhere. On the laundry you'll scrub later, on the nun who fainted last week, during prayers, on the goat that escaped the pen and had to be chased for an hour across the convent garden. Because holiness is not the absence of distraction. It is continuing despite it. After matins, you eat. A bowl of weak gruel, a crust of bread. No meat, of course. It's Lent. You break your fast with silence. The youngest girl, Sister Bertha, spills her bowl. The elder, Sister Marjorie, frowns but says nothing. Discipline is often silent here. Then chores begin. You are assigned to the laundry this week. There is always laundry, and always mud. The convent is built near a stream, which overflows in spring. The drying line is a wooden pole between two apple trees. The wind is unkind. The soap is lye and water, rough on skin, stinging in cuts. Your hands crack. You wrap them at night. In the morning, the bandages are stiff with dried blood and old wool. You do not complain. Complaints are spoken, and speech is rationed like butter. The convent rule allows speaking only at designated times. Meals, prayers, work. These are silent. The idea is to quiet the self. But silence, you've learned, can become noise too. The kind that rattles inside your skull when all you want is a voice, a story, a name. Names are rare here. You are sister. They are sister. The woman who taught you to read Psalms is sister. So is the one who beats the rugs and grumbles under her breath. The girl who once wept in her sleep and never said why. Sister. You are all fragments of a whole, and no part is more than the whole. That's what you've been told. Once, long ago, you snuck a mirror into the laundry shed. It was polished brass, left behind by a visiting noblewoman. You stared at it, not with vanity, though perhaps a little, but with confusion. Your own face had become strange to you. The softness was gone. The angles sharper, your hair hidden, your mouth a straight line. You looked like everyone else. You turned the mirror over and never looked again. In the afternoon, you scrub floors. A noblewoman is visiting in 3 days. That means double work and triple worry. Her donation might fund the new roof, or she might complain about the cheese. It depends, you think, on how many times she's fasted lately. The prioress is strict, but not unkind. She was once married, lost 2 children, and entered the convent at 35. She rarely speaks of her life before, but sometimes, when she thinks no one is watching, she touches a ring she no longer wears. There are secrets everywhere here, not just the ones sealed in confession, but the kind that hang like laundry between 2 trees. Visible, mundane, impossible to ignore. Evening brings vespers. Candles flicker. Your voice is hoarse. Your hands ache. But the chant is soothing in its way. You like the Psalms, even if you don't always believe them. The candle wax pools on the stone floor. A moth flutters near the flame and singes its wing. You watch it fall. No one else notices. Later, you tend to the herb garden. It's mostly frostbitten now, but the rosemary still holds on. You whisper to the plants, quietly. This is allowed. Plants do not report back. They do not remind you to be humble. One of the sisters, the old one with the crooked back, tells stories in gestures. Once she traced the shape of a fish with her fingers and pointed to the cellar. You understood. There was salted herring, a gift from the village. You shared it in silence, eyes smiling, mouths still. At night, you write. There is a single book. You are allowed to copy. A Lives of the Saints, its margins filled with tiny birds drawn by a sister long dead. You like her birds more than the words. They seem more honest. You dip your quill carefully. Ink is precious. You form the letters slowly, deliberately. Each one must match the one before. Uniformity is devotion. But tonight, something strange. Your hand slips. The letter bends. A curl where there should be none. You start to scrape it clean, but stop. Instead, you let it stay. One curl, a flourish, a mark that says, "I was here." You hide the page at the back of the stack. No one will notice, but you will. You blow out the candle and return to your mat. The cold finds your skin easily. Sleep will come. But before it does, you wonder, what if silence isn't just absence? What if it's a language no one taught you how to speak? The next morning, the chapel bell sounds duller than usual. Damp air has crept into the bell tower overnight, softening the clang. It rings anyway, as it always does. Bells do not ask for permission. You rise, wash your face with cold water from the basin, and wrap your bandaged hands in fresh cloth. The cracks are deeper this morning. A sister once told you that suffering in silence brings you closer to God. You nodded when she said it. You're still not sure if it's true? Matins comes and goes. So does breakfast. The porridge is thinner than yesterday, but you don't mind. Hunger is expected, even welcomed. Emptiness, after all, makes more room for holiness, or so you've been taught. Today, you're reassigned to scriptorium duty. It's a small change, but in the convent, any deviation from routine feels like a revolution. You prefer the scriptorium. It's quiet, warm, and smells of ink and parchment rather than mud and mildew. You settle in beside Sister Juliana, a sharp-eyed woman who corrects mistakes without speaking. Her finger simply lands on your page, steady as a compass needle, and waits for you to notice. You retrieve the hidden page with the curled letter. You should have destroyed it. Instead, you tuck it into the bottom of the copy stack, where Juliana is least likely to find it. Still, your hands tremble slightly. You tell yourself it's from the cold. The manuscript you're copying today is about Saint Dymphna, a name few know outside the cloister. The pages detail her flight from her father, her hiding in a small village, her refusal to marry. She is martyred in the end, of course. Most women saints are, but the part that holds your attention is the middle, her quiet life in exile, the part where she is safe, for a while. You copy each letter with care, but your mind drifts. Would you have run like Dymphna? Could you have? You were brought here, not out of danger, but necessity. Your family was poor. Too many mouths, not enough dowries. A convent was cheaper than a wedding. You were told it was a blessing. Perhaps it was. Outside the scriptorium, Sister Bertha is learning to read. You hear her murmuring syllables in the garden, her voice barely louder than the bees. She stumbles on mercy. You remember stumbling there too. Later you carry a tray of ink pots to the window shelf. As you move, the edge of your sleeve catches one of the older manuscripts. It falls. You reach out, too slow. The edge of the parchment tears. You freeze. Sister Juliana turns. Her mouth is firm. Her eyes scan the damage. The tear is small, but visible. The manuscript is valuable, not because it's rare, but because it's finished. Repairing it means hours of scraping, patching, redrawing. "I'm sorry," you whisper. The words feel strange in your mouth. Heavy. Real. Juliana doesn't respond. She simply lifts the page, studies it, and then, surprisingly, nods. "We'll fix it tomorrow," she says. Then she hands you a fresh sheet of parchment and points to the empty space before you. Begin again. You return to your bench. You copy. Letters until your hand cramps. You flex your fingers beneath the table where no one can see. You whisper psalm lines under your breath, not from devotion, but from muscle memory. That evening, during dinner, the prioress reads aloud. It's a letter from the abbess of a nearby convent. One of their novices has run away, taken her habit and vanished. No one knows where she's gone. A chill settles over the room. The air feels tighter. The clinking of spoons slows. Sister Marjorie murmurs something about sin. Sister Elodia crosses herself 3 times. You say nothing. Later that night, as you sweep the chapel floor, You find a scrap of fabric behind the altar rail. It's just a torn bit of linen, likely fallen from a sleeve, but your breath catches. When you pick it up, you don't know why. You carry it back to your cell and place it under your straw mat. That night, the frost comes heavier than before. Your breath clouds the air as you lie awake. The silence is louder than ever. You wonder what the runaway novice felt as she stepped beyond the gate. Terror? Relief? Freedom? Did she look back? Would you? And if you walked out tomorrow, into the stillness of the hills beyond, would God's voice sound different outside these walls? Snow has come in the night, soft and without announcement. You see it first in the courtyard, powdering the stone walk and the crooked wooden benches. It mutes everything: sound, color, even breath. The convent looks like it's holding its breath. You rise as always. The bell rings. The sisters shuffle to matins with shoulders hunched and hands tucked deep into sleeves. No one speaks. In the chapel, your eyes linger on the stained glass window above the altar. The morning light filters through St. Agnes holding a lamb. Her face is too serene to be real. You know real holiness doesn't look like that. It looks like cracked skin, bruised knees, silence swallowed for the sake of peace. You mouth the prayers. You no longer know which parts you believe. Some days you believe all of it. Others, none. But your voice joins the others anyway, and that counts for something. After matins, the prioress calls you aside. She found your hidden manuscript page, the one with the curled letter. She does not shout. She does not strike you. She simply looks at you. Then she says, "Why?" You don't know how to answer. You open your mouth, but no words come. Not because you're afraid, but because you've forgotten how to speak the truth in full sentences. She holds up the page again. "It's beautiful," she says softly. You blink. Then she hands it back. "No more flourishes," she adds. You nod, clutching the page like it's a blessing. The scriptorium that day is warmer than usual. Sister Juliana brings you thicker parchment. No explanation. You begin copying the Acts of Saint Scholastica. You notice the way her story lingers on storms, silence, and reluctant obedience. You wonder if the scribe who first penned it was also a woman. At midday, the goat escapes again. You're the one who finds it, nosing around the herb beds. You lead it back gently, coaxing with scraps of bread. Sister Bertha watches from the window and waves. She smiles now when she sees you. It's a new thing. In the kitchen, Sister Elodia burns the lentils. The smoke is sharp. You open the shutters and fan the air with a baking paddle. She mutters apologies. You laugh, just once. A dry, startled sound. It echoes in the stone. Later that evening, the prioress gathers everyone in the chapter house. There is news. The runaway novice has been found. She was trying to reach her brother, in the village beyond the hills. She was caught by a traveler's cart and returned, but not to her old convent. They sent her here. She arrives the next morning. Her name is Sister Ellen. She is 15, small, and silent. You recognize the look in her eyes. Not fear, not defiance, just quiet calculation. You had it too once. They assign her to your work group. You show her how to measure soap for laundry, how to stack parchment so it doesn't curl, how to walk silently in the snow. She doesn't speak for 3 days. Then, one evening while sweeping the chapel floor, she whispers, "Do you ever think about leaving?" You pause. The broom stills in your hands. Then you answer, "Every day." She doesn't ask again. But she watches you differently after that. Spring comes slowly. The snow melts in uneven patches, revealing muddy grass and broken flagstones. The goat births twins. The rosemary blooms. And Sister Ellen begins to sing during Vespers, quietly but clearly. The prioress nods approvingly. You return to your copying. You've been assigned a new task, compiling a book of local saints and miracles. The prioress says your hand is steady. You write slowly, deliberately, letting each letter settle like a seed. You include Saint Dymphna. Of course, but you add something extra. Not a flourish, not this time. Just a small bird in the margin. Wings open. Mid-flight, you close the book. In the evening, you visit the gate. It's open for the first time since winter. The porter is asleep. You step to the threshold. Not past it. Just to it. The air outside smells different. Wild. Unsure. Free. You stand there for a long time. You don't run, but you don't go back right away either. You pray, not with words, but with presence, and you wonder, if God is everywhere, then perhaps the gate was never really closed. Perhaps it was only waiting for you to stand beside it. You crouch beside the hearth, knees cracking with age, and stir the ashes until the embers glow. You don't need much heat, just enough to warm the water. The girl is in labor, and it's her first. The baby's coming too early, or too late. You've seen both, and neither ends cleanly. You are Marta, the village midwife. You're not a healer, not by training. You cannot read. You have no license. But you've delivered over 60 children in this hamlet, and buried perhaps half, as many. The villagers trust you, until something goes wrong. Then they remember you're a woman with no husband, too many herbs, and a cottage too far from the church. This morning you were called before dawn by a boy with bare feet and a voice gone, hoarse from panic. "My sister's time has come," he said. He didn't knock, just burst in. You followed him without speaking. Now you're here, kneeling on mud floors, surrounded by the low groans of a girl not yet 16. Her belly is taut, her skin pale. Her mother paces in the corner, whispering prayers into a torn kerchief. You check the dilation. It's slow. You mutter something about patience and pain. The girl doesn't answer. She is biting down on her shawl, face slick with sweat. You ask for hot water, clean cloth, and a candle. You're given cold broth, a worn rag, and a stump of tallow. You make do. You always make do. The house smells of wood smoke and fear. You burn rosemary to cover the worst of it. The girl's husband is nowhere to be seen. He left at dawn to fetch a priest, or so he said. You suspect he's drinking behind the cow pens. Men like that do not wait well. You begin your work. The labor stretches. Hours pass. The candle shortens. The room dims. You speak in low tones, soothing where you can, firm where you must. You massage the belly, reposition her legs, breathe with her. The mother crosses herself with every contraction. You try not to notice. Finally, the baby crowns. It's not right. The position is wrong. You feel it. A shoulder turned. You mutter a curse, quiet enough not to be heard. You've done this before. You know what must be done. You reach in, gently but firmly. The girl screams. The mother sobs. You do not stop. When the baby emerges, it is limp. You don't panic. You clear the mouth, rub the back, blow softly. You've brought babies back. Before, this one stirs. A cry. Weak but real. You nod once. The girl passes out. You clean her, stitch her, wrap her in blankets. You place the child on her chest. Then you leave. There is no thanks. There never is. You don't wait for it. Back in your hut, you scrub your hands with ash and vinegar. The blood is thick beneath your nails. You rub until your skin burns. You sit. You rest. You sip broth, stale and thin. Outside, the boy with bare feet returns. His face is pale. He says the baby stopped breathing. You do not run. That would be a confession. Instead, You stand, slowly, and ask the boy one question. "Where is the child now?" "In the crib," he says, voice breaking. "I think he's gone cold." You take your shawl, wrap it tight. The frost is still on the grass. Your knees ache with each step as you walk back to the family's cottage. But your back remains straight. A crooked spine invites accusation. You've learned to hold yourself like someone beyond reproach, whether you feel it or not. At the door, the mother is wailing. Inside, the girl, the new mother, is pale as bone. She doesn't speak. Her hands are limp at her sides. The child lies still in a wicker crib filled with hay and wool scraps. His lips are bluish. You feel the chest. Cold. Still. You say nothing for a long time. A candle flickers. The mother looks at you. Not like before. Not with hope. Now there's a flicker of something harder. Grief, yes, but already coiling into blame. You know this look. You've seen it before. It's the same face people wear when crops fail or storms take roofs. They don't blame the sky. They blame the ones who were nearby. The old woman with herb jars. The one who knows which weeds can end pain or end life. You reach for the baby, wrap the body in clean cloth, and place him in the mother's lap. He passed quietly, you say. It isn't entirely true, but you don't tell them the truth. That the cord was too tight. That the labor took too long. That no one could have saved him. They won't believe you. You know how this will unfold. First the glances, then the muttering. Eventually, someone will say, "Witch." Not openly, not at first. It'll start with "wise woman," then "herb wife." Then one night, you'll find your door smeared with dung. Or worse. Back in your hut, you grind dried wormwood and mix it into a tea. Not for healing, for memory. You drink it when you need to forget the weight of a dead child in your arms. You sit by the hearth, stare at the fire, and wait. By evening, the priest arrives. You see him pass on the road, black robes billowing. You don't go outside. He doesn't. Stop at your door. Not yet. The next morning, someone leaves an offering outside your home. A basket of eggs, a strip of salt pork, and a note scratched on birch bark. "Thank you for helping my wife." No name. Just the message, the girl's husband. You didn't expect it. You tuck the note into the space behind your cupboard, but it doesn't protect you. By the next market day, the whispers have begun. Two women cross themselves when you pass. A boy throws a pebble at your goat. You see old Father Edric shake his head as you approach the chapel. He does not speak, but his silence is as loud as bells. You keep working. There's another woman due in 2 weeks. You've already prepared the herbs. Raspberry leaf, yarrow, fennel. You know what to do. You always do, but you hesitate now before every visit. You leave offerings, rosemary bundles, ash circles, beneath your mat. Old charms your mother taught you before she died of fever. You don't believe in magic, but belief is often a luxury. One afternoon, Sister Elena from the Hill Convent visits. She's young, stern, kind in a practical way. She brings honey and asks for help with a nun in pain. You follow her without a word. There are fewer questions in convents, only need. The nun is old, bent nearly double. Her belly aches. You brew a tea of meadow sweet and thyme, rub her abdomen gently. She sighs and then sleeps. Sister Elena gives you 3 silver pennies. "For your time," she says. You nod, but when you return home, someone has drawn a cross on your door. Not a prayer, a warning. That night, you light no candle. You keep the fire low. You sleep with your knife under your shawl. You dream of the child, not the one who died. Another, one you never had. He walks barefoot, smiling, then fades into smoke when you wake. You remember the girl's face, the one you helped deliver. She has not spoken since the baby died. Some losses silence you forever, but others carve a space in your chest, room for something else. Maybe you will never be safe again. Maybe you never were, but you will not stop. You open your door, step outside, and you wonder, how many children will be born in this village in the coming years? And who will they call when the blood begins to fall? They come for you just after dusk. It starts with shouting in the lane, sharp, uncertain, like men trying to sound brave. You rise from your stool, pull your shawl tight, and step out into the wind. You expect 3, maybe 4 of them. There are 7. The man at the front is Thomas, the blacksmith's cousin. Big, red-faced, and clenching a torch like it's an axe. Behind him, the baker's boy, the miller's nephew, the Reeves' second son. None of them meet your eyes. The 7th is the priest. He speaks first. "Marta," he says, as if starting a sermon. "There's concern in the village." You say nothing. He shifts uncomfortably. "A child is dead." Others remember strange things, herbs, unusual prayers, folk charms. Still you do not speak. What could you say? That you caught his own sister's child 2 years ago, during a storm? That he blessed the boy afterward, while you scrubbed blood from the straw? That he left that day with dry boots while you stayed behind, shivering? It wouldn't matter. He's not here for answers. He's here for certainty, for a scapegoat. "We're asking you," he says, polite, almost pained, "to leave." The word isn't shouted. It's softer than you expected, but it cuts just the same. You nod once, slowly. "When?" "By moonrise," the priest says. Tomas shifts his weight. Someone coughs. The torch hisses in the wind. You do not beg. You do not protest. You simply turn, step back inside, and begin to pack. You take little, your worn knife, your herbs, 2 vials of tincture, a pouch of salt, and your mother's wool shawl. You do not cry. There's no time for that. The village will sleep better tonight, believing they've cast something out. They won't say which, not aloud, but the word will cling to their silence. As you leave your hut, a girl waits at the edge of the path. Not the mother. Her. The baby's sister. She's 6, hair in a single braid, clutching a carved wooden figure, a tiny goat. She doesn't speak, just presses it into your palm and runs. You do not follow, but you hold the gift. The road out of the village is narrow and muddy, bordered by skeletal trees and the occasional broken fence post. You walk without looking back. By dawn, your legs ache, and the sky is washed pale with cold light. You follow a stream for a time, then cut toward the hill road. There are other villages, other women, other children soon to be born. They will need hands. Your hands. You reach the edge of a forest and pause to rest beneath an ash tree. You light a small fire, boil nettles, and sip from a cracked tin cup. The goat figure sits beside you. You are not a healer. You are not a witch. You are a woman who has delivered life in silence, and buried it too. And you are still here. By nightfall, you come upon a hamlet, smaller than the one you left. A chapel, 4 cottages, smoke curling from one chimney. A woman outside one home looks up as you pass. Her belly is round, her eyes wide. You stop. Raise a hand. "I'm a midwife," you say. She doesn't speak for a long time. Then quietly she opens the gate. "Good," she says. "We don't have one." You nod. Step through. Later that night, as you lie beside the hearth, arms wrapped around your satchel, you listen to the wind scratching the shutters. You wonder, not for the first time, how many women like you are out there, unnamed, unwritten, cast out and called upon, often in the same breath. And you know the truth. No ledger holds your name. But in every village where a baby cries for the first time, you are there, even if no one says it aloud. You are the quiet between contractions, the hand that steadies, the one who stays. You are 8 years old when your fate is decided. The men shake hands in your father's hall, nodding over wine and whispered promises. You don't understand most of the words: marriage bond, alliance, dowry guarantee. But you recognize the look in your mother's eyes. Not grief, just distance. Like she's folded herself in half and can't unfold. You're called to the table. The men smile. One of them pats your head. "This is the bride," your father says. The word is strange in his mouth. You look down at your shoes. The groom is 16, rich, pale, son of a minor noble with 4 vineyards and a cough he won't outgrow. He doesn't speak to you, just nods once, like agreeing to buy a horse. You don't see him again for 2 years. In that time you learn embroidery, manners, how to walk without scuffing your slippers. You're told to eat less, to smile more, to never contradict. The nursemaid corrects your posture with a switch. The tutor recites prayers about obedience. Your dowry is prepared. 2 silver rings, a bolt of Flemish linen, 3 goats, and you, on your 10th birthday, they wake you before dawn, dress you in white, weave daisies into your hair. The village watches as you're led through the square. Some clap, some just stare. The chapel smells of dust and time. The priest speaks fast. Your hands are cold. You say the words you were told to say. The ring is too loose. Later, at the feast, the groom offers you a spoonful of honeyed pears. You smile, because it's what's expected. You wonder, when did your life stop belonging to you? The manor is colder than you expected. Stone walls, drafty halls, and a smell that never quite leaves. The mix of mildew, burnt wood, and boiled onions. You arrive 3 days after the wedding, your arrival delayed only because the cart broke an axle on the way. You're still only 10. You have a room now. It's large, but bare. The window is too high to look out of unless you stand on the bench, which the nursemaid tells you not to do. You'll stretch your bodice seams. You don't even know what that means yet, but you nod anyway. Your husband, such a strange word still, visits only once that week. He brings you a small brooch with a chipped red stone and tells you to stay warm. Then he leaves. You spend the days learning how to be invisible. The kitchen staff tolerate you. They whisper when you walk past. Not unkind things, just observations. "So small," they say, "like a sparrow in lace." You begin to understand your place. Your mother wrote once, a short letter. It said, "Be patient. You are noble now. You keep it folded in your prayer book." You read it sometimes when the shutters rattle too loud, and the nursemaid forgets to bring your bread. You are told not to play anymore. Dolls are removed. Your time is now spent stitching hems and reciting psalms. The steward says you must learn to write your husband's name properly. "You'll be signing accounts one day," he says. You nod, though the inkpot still frightens you. The quill scratches like claws. The household priest, Father Emile, visits on Tuesdays and Thursdays. He brings books and stories. His Latin is slow and clear. You like the way his voice drops when he says, "Mercy." One day, while he's reading, you ask, "When will I be a real wife?" He stops. His eyes darken. "Not until you bleed," he says. You don't ask again. Spring comes. The gardens bloom. The kitchen cat gives birth to 3 kittens in your bedchamber hearth. You hide them under your linen pile for 2 days before the maid finds them and takes them away. She says they were dirtying the sheets. You cry that night, quietly, so the walls won't echo. Your husband returns in the summer. He's taller now, his voice deeper. He watches you like someone inspecting a tapestry, appreciative but distant. He brings you a comb made of horn. For your hair, he says. You thank him. He leaves the next morning for hunting. Your monthly courses have not begun. But the talk around you is changing. Whispers of consummation pass between chambermaids. You don't understand all of it, but you feel the weight of something coming. Father Emile avoids your gaze during lessons. The steward stops asking about your penmanship. Instead, he asks if your appetite has changed. One night during supper, your husband says, "She's nearly of age." No one replies. You are served figs in honey. They stick in your throat. The next day, the nursemaid fits you for new dresses, tighter in the bodice, longer in the hem. You bleed for the first time in your 11th year. It comes without warning. Red, on linen, the sting of salt water down your thighs. You're not afraid. You knew it was coming. But something inside you shifts the moment it happens. You feel smaller and older, all at once. The nursemaid is quick to notice. She fetches the steward, who tells the chaplain, who tells your husband, who smiles. The bedding is changed. The prayers are said. A new dress is brought in. Richer fabric, darker thread, longer sleeves. A lady's cut, they say. And the waiting ends. You don't understand everything that happens that night. Only that you are expected to be still, to be quiet, to be grateful. You do your best. In the morning, the sheets are taken, washed, shown, whispered about. You do not speak. Weeks pass, then months. You are called lady now, not girl. You host small dinners. You bless loaves. You begin to memorize the accounts. The steward teaches you how to read land rolls. Which tenants are behind on barley? Which ones keep goats without permission? You ask questions. He hesitates at first, then answers. You are still learning how to breathe. There are rules. And beneath the rules, customs. And beneath customs, fears. You listen to them in the way servants cough, in the way the cook mutters about needing a midwife again. One night, your husband is feverish. You sit by the fire, spooning broth past his lips. He does not thank you. He hasn't said your name in weeks. You do not mind. You do not hate him, but you do not love him either. The manor runs better now. You know how many sheep are grazing, how many hens are due to lay, how much honey can be pulled without angering the bees. Your mother writes again. Her letter is shorter this time. She says, "You have made us proud." You put it in the drawer, next to your comb, next to the prayer beads you no longer count. On your 14th birthday, the cook bakes a honey cake. You serve slices to every servant. You eat yours in the garden, alone. You look up and you wonder. How many girls walk through chapel doors as brides before they learn to tie their own shoes? How many grow into women without ever being girls? You brush the crumbs from your dress and you breathe. The first thing you do each morning is sniff the air, not for rain or frost, but for yeast. Yeast has a smell, warm, sour, alive. And if it's off, the day is ruined. You are Annis, daughter of no one important, but in this town, everyone knows you as the Brewster. Not a Brewster, the Brewster. You inherited the trade from your aunt, who inherited it from her mother, who brewed so well a monk once called her half saint, half ale barrel. You brew because it's necessary. Bread feeds the stomach, but ale makes it safe to drink water. The town well is never clean. Babies die from what's in it. Your ale saves them even if no one says so. The barrels sit in your workshop like sleeping animals. Big, round, slow to anger but quick to spoil. You check them one by one, tap the lids. Stir the mash. Today's batch smells right. Bready and faintly sweet, with a hint of juniper. You smile. The fire in the hearth snaps. You add more peat. Not wood. Never wood. Peat burns longer. Steadier. You learned that when you scorched a whole batch last spring. The Brewers Guild, what little of it exists in this town, still mentions it behind your back. You grind barley. Measure water. Stir with the long paddle your aunt carved from an ash branch. The brew sings beneath your hands. Every woman in your family had a knack for it. They say it's in the wrists. You finish the boil just as the sun clears the roofline. Then comes the worst part, the inspection. A man from the manor arrives, clipboard in hand. Though he wouldn't know good ale if it washed his boots. His job is not to taste, it's to count. How much you brewed, how much you sold, how much you owe. You offer him a sample anyway. He refuses, as always, says it's improper. You suspect he doesn't want to admit he likes it. He marks something on his paper. You brewed more this week, you nod. Festival coming, he frowns. Means more tax. You expected that. You pay him 3 pennies. He eyes your apron pocket. The guild still says you're undercutting. You smile. The guild can say what it likes. He doesn't smile back. When he leaves, you close the shutters and let yourself curse, softly. The taxes are rising faster than your profits, and you're brewing more than ever. 2 days ago, you caught a boy trying to thin your mash with water. You chased him off with a spoon. He worked for a rival brewster, a man with more debts than skill. It's always men like that who cause trouble. Your customers are loyal, mostly women, mothers, midwives, gravediggers. They come in 2s and 3s, exchange coins and news. You listen. You nod. You remember, ale is not just drink here. It is memory, ceremony. You brewed for the midwife's first daughter, for the tanner's funeral, for the Reeves' secret wedding, and now, festival. You haul 4 barrels to the green with the help of old Nan, who lifts better than most men half her age. You set up under the hawthorn tree. The day is bright. The crowd is thirsty. By mid-afternoon, the barrels are nearly dry. That's when the constable arrives. And that's when the trouble begins. You smell the trouble before it speaks. The constable walks like someone expecting to be obeyed. His boots are too clean for a festival, his hat too stiff. He's not from your part of town. He barely hides the sneer when he eyes your barrels. Annis the Brewster? He asks, though he clearly knows. You wipe your hands on your apron. Aye. You're summoned, he says, unrolling a parchment. Accusation of adulteration. Thin ale, false measures, tax underpayment. The words aren't loud, but they don't need to be. The crowd quiets. Old Nan tenses beside you. Someone drops a mug. Who made the accusation, you ask? He shrugs. That's for the Reeve. It isn't hard to guess. Edwin, the rival brewster, has grumbled about you for months. Claimed your ale couldn't possibly be that strong, that good, that cheap. He's never said it to your face. But now, here it is, summoned in ink and seal. You don't argue. You can't. If you refuse, they'll take your barrels, your coin, maybe your license. So you nod and follow. The hearing is held in the Reeves' Hall, a small drafty room that smells of damp parchment and boiled cabbage. 3 men sit at the long table, the Reeve, the steward, and a man from the guild, who avoids your gaze. Behind them, stacked ledgers. Not one of them contains the names of the women who made your ale famous. You stand, hands behind your back, and listen. The accusations are read. Edwin testifies. Claims he saw your apprentice watering the mash. Claims your ale doesn't meet the legal thickness. That your tolls were late. That you bribed the manor clerk with a goose. You laugh at that one. You've never owned a goose in your life. The steward clears his throat. Do you deny these claims? I do. You have no guild license, the guildman adds. Never. Needed one, you reply. Brewster's work is passed through hands, not paper. The reeve looks uneasy. You know his wife drinks your ale. So does his cook. You once sent a warm jug to his sister when she lost her baby. But politics is thicker than grief. They send you outside while they deliberate. You stand in the courtyard, cold seeping into your boots. A child runs past with a stick, pretending. It's a sword. You envy her clarity. The world makes sense to children. When they call you back in, the room feels smaller. The verdict is this, says the reeve. You may continue brewing, for now. Relief blooms in your chest, but dies quickly, but only under monthly inspection, and only with a licensed male overseer present. You blink. A what? A guild-certified male, the steward explains. To verify measures and quality. For fairness. Fairness. That word rings colder than snow. You speak carefully. So, I'm to teach a man my craft, and then pay him to judge it? That is the ruling, the reeve says. The guildman smiles slightly. You should be grateful. Most women don't get hearings. You stare at him. Your hands are shaking, not from fear but fury. You leave without another word. Back at your home, you find your aunt's old paddle. It hangs above the hearth carved with 3 initials. A.E.B. Annis Eleanor Brewster. Your namesake. She fought the guild once too. They tried to fine her for selling on Sundays. She responded by selling on Saturdays and hosting singing lessons during the sale. You stay up late that night planning. In the morning, a young man arrives at your door. Guild certified. A brewer's son, soft-faced and smug. His name is Aldrich. I'm to be your overseer, he says, holding out a parchment. Shall we begin? You let him in. Show him your workshop, your barrels, your tools. You brew. He watches. He says nothing, except to point out the obvious. You're using more barley than required. You nod. That's why it tastes better. He frowns. Doesn't seem profitable. You shrug. I'm not in this to get rich. I'm in this so no child drinks poisoned water. He says nothing after that. For weeks, he returns, watches, takes notes. But gradually the tone shifts. He asks questions, real ones, about malt ratios, about herb additions, about how to tell when the mash is ready without a clock. You answer, because knowledge isn't something you hoard. It's something you stir into the pot and pass around. Then one day, you find him waiting at the door with a different expression. They're shutting Edwin down, he says. You blink. Why? Turns out, he says, he really was thinning. His mash. You raise an eyebrow. How'd they find out? Aldrich smiles. Anonymous tip. You smile back. The next festival, the crowd is bigger than ever. Your ale sells out before noon. Aldrich still comes to inspect, but now he brings a mug. He never says thank you. But one day, as he leaves, he pauses and says, if you ever wanted to apply for your own license, I could help. You don't answer. You don't need to, you're already brewing. And you wonder, how many women poured their stories into barrels that no one wrote down? How many saved lives, kept peace, healed hearts with ale and care? You don't need a parchment to prove your worth. You just need a fire, a paddle, and a batch that sings when you stir. The barrel is empty by noon, not just one. All of them. The spring festival draws the town like bees to cider. Your stall near the green is slick with mud and footprints. You've been pouring since dawn, and your hands are sticky with spilled. Ale and Coin Aldrich, your guild-assigned overseer, is supposed to be watching you. Instead, he's seated beneath the hawthorn tree with a mug and a notebook that's more doodles than data. He waves lazily when you glance his way. You almost laugh. Almost, but your back aches. and there's still cleanup ahead. The stew vendors. Dog has knocked over one of your rinsing tubs. A boy slips on a peel and nearly hits your cask. You scold him, but gently. He's the apothecary's nephew. You once helped his aunt cure his cough, with beer steeped in thyme. You're not just a Brewster. You're a memory keeper, an unofficial ledger of family crises and village joy. A girl no older than 12 approaches with a coin and a question. Do you sell to women? You blink. Of course. She glances back over her shoulder. At her mother, perhaps, or a watching brother. Even to girls? You nod. Especially. She places the coin down like a secret. You hand her a small jug, half full, enough for her mother's stew or her father's aching knees. She smiles, not childishly but knowingly, and runs off with her prize. That evening, after the fire dies and the last mug is rinsed, Aldrich lingers. No, he says. You don't have to keep brewing like this. You could marry, pass it on, or stop entirely. You glance at him, steady. Why would I stop? He shrugs. Just thinking. It's hard work. So is childbirth. He flushes. I'm not tired, you say, even though you are. I'm determined. He doesn't reply, but he nods before leaving. That, too, feels like a kind of apology. Back home, you write something on the back of an old ledger page, a thought that came to you while skimming foam earlier. No man will remember the recipes, but women do. You fold the paper, tuck it into your aunt's old brewing paddle sheath. Some legacies don't need ink. The following week, the guild sends another letter. This one is formal, stamped, and sealed. They're offering you a license. Not a temporary one, a real one. You stare at the parchment for a long time. Then you laugh. A sound as rich as brown ale, deep and unexpected. The license doesn't erase the past. It doesn't ease the years your aunt brewed in shadows. It doesn't bring back the girl you were when you first carried hops in a basket bigger than your torso. But it is something. You frame it. Not because you need the proof, but because other women will see it. And they'll ask, and you'll tell them how to mash, how to stir, how to wait. You won't hide the burn marks on your forearms or the ache in your knees. Those are part of the recipe, too. Your daughter, if you have one, will not inherit coin, but she will inherit process. She'll inherit patience and grit, and a paddle carved with initials too faded to read. One day, she might be asked, "Why not let the men do it?" And she'll answer, calmly, like a woman who's boiled and tested and brewed through decades of noise, because men water it down. And you wonder, how many untaxed hours, unsung batches, and unnamed Brewsters made life livable in towns like this? How many of their stories, like yours, only survive in flavor? You sit by the doorway with your distaff in hand and a lap full of raw flax. The sun has barely cleared the trees, but your fingers are already raw from twisting, pulling, separating. You spin because your family needs cloth, and because there is always more flax. The basket never empties. The need never ends. Your name is Ilsa. You are 17, unmarried and poor. Not desperately so, but enough that your father counts dried beans in threes, not handfuls. Enough that your spinning is not hobby, but survival. The spindle hums between your fingers. It is old, balanced slightly to the left, and splinters if you hold it wrong. But you know its mood. You've spun with it for 7 winters. It knows you too. In the house, your mother needs dough. Your younger brothers sleep still. Your father is away, delivering firewood for the bailiff. He says he'll be paid in kind. You suspect it'll be another sack of millet. You don't mind millet, but it doesn't dye well, and you need dye. Your cousin is marrying next month, and your mother insists you wear blue. Deep blue, she said, to show your worth. You smiled, but said nothing. Because your worth isn't in color. It's in thread count. You learned to spin at 8. At first it was just play, twisting sheep's wool on your thumb. Then came flax, then hemp, then nights without sleep, churning fiber while your feet bled from frost. Spinning is not gentle. It bites. Your posture curves to it. Your spine warps slowly, the way oak bends in wind. Your neighbors joke that you'll twist yourself into a ball one day. You laugh too, but you feel it, in your bones, the ache that begins below your ribs and crawls up your back. Still, you spin. The village spinner's house is small, crooked, and always warm from the hearth. You pass it sometimes. She is 63 and nearly blind, but her yarn is smooth. Her threads hold shape even after 10 winters. You admire her. Some say she's a witch. You know better. You trade with her sometimes. Your scraps for her dye. Water? Last time she gave you walnut stain. It made your sleeves too dark, but strong. Today, you are spinning flax for sheets. Your aunt asked for 2 bolts by All Saints' Day. You'll have to spin every day until then, and weave through the night. You agreed. Not because she pays well, but because her husband beats her when she doesn't deliver. You thread because you can't fix broken ribs, but you can soften a bed. At noon, your mother serves onion broth with barley. You eat quickly, then return to your seat. You are behind already. The wind picks up. The fibers twist faster. Your fingers burn. By mid-afternoon, a visitor arrives. Steward from the manor. He brings 2 guards and a roll of parchment. We need blankets, he says. For the winter tithe. Your mother hesitates. We're not a weaver's house. You spin, he replies, pointing to your lap. It'll do. He offers no coin, only a promise. Your name will be remembered at the chapel. You say nothing. Your mother nods. After they leave, she looks at you. We'll need 20 bolts. You nod, and you wonder, not for the first time, how much longer your hands can move before your back refuses to follow. What breaks first in a spinner? The thread or the girl? You do the math in your head. 20 bolts of linen. Each bolt at least 20 ells long. That's 400 ells. You'll need roughly 8 full skeins per bolt. And each skein takes 6 days to spin if you work from dawn until moonrise, with 1 break to eat and 2 to stretch your fingers so they don't lock. You don't write this down. You just know it. The way other people know their siblings' names or the hours of prayer. Your life is measured in thread. The steward's visit has shifted everything. Your aunt's order still stands. But now the manor needs cloth and you cannot say no. No one can. Refusing a lord's demand is not rebellion. It's foolishness, the kind that leads to fines, or confiscation, or worse. You start waking earlier, sleeping less. Your stool by the hearth grows warm from constant use. Your feet grow numb. You rub them with goose fat at night, but it doesn't help. Your mother offers to help. Her hands are rough from bread making, but she can spin coarsely. She handles the hemp. You keep the flax. Flax is finer, less forgiving. Like embroidery, only meaner. Your youngest brother tries to help too, collecting kindling, stoking the hearth, whispering songs to keep your rhythm. He is 7. You love him fiercely. He is the only one who has never once told you that spinning is just sitting. By the 2nd week, your skin splits along your knuckles. The fibers catch on. The open wounds. You bleed a little into the thread. You don't stop. If anything, the blood dyes it a warmer color. By the 3rd week, the ache in your spine becomes a burning line that stretches from shoulder blade to hip. You fashion a belt from an old leather strap to keep your posture straight. It helps for an hour, then it doesn't. Your aunt comes by to collect her bolts. You give her 6 instead of 8. She doesn't complain. She sees your fingers, She sees your eyes. She leaves cheese and a small pouch of dye, indigo. You haven't seen real blue in years. You hide it. The manor will want all your best work, but this blue is not for them. You begin weaving in the evenings. The loom your father built creaks louder than before, but it still holds. Your mother boils nettles to keep you awake. You drink without question. One night, while combing flax, you hear the priest's voice outside your window. He's speaking with your mother. Something about prayers for the harvest. Then his voice lowers. Your name is said. You freeze. She needs rest, your mother says. She's serving her station, he replies. You grip the comb tighter. You do not stop. That night, you dream of thread breaking over and over again. Every time you fix it, the loom grows taller. By mid-month, you've spun 14 skeins. Then it happens. Your hand locks. At first, you think it's just a cramp. You stretch your fingers, massage the joint. Nothing. You try to hold the spindle. It drops. You stare at your palm, willing it to move. It doesn't. Your mother finds you sitting by the hearth, hand curled like a claw. She doesn't speak, just places a warm cloth on your lap and starts wrapping your fingers. You've done enough, she says softly. But you haven't, because there are still 6 bolts left, and no one else can spin them fast enough. The next morning, you try again. Your hand obeys, barely. You brace your wrist with a strip of bark. You switch to left-handed spinning for a while. It's slower, clumsier, but the thread holds. Your mother begins sleeping by the hearth with you. She snores gently. Sometimes your brother curls beside her. You wake to the smell of ashes and onions. You don't remember the last time you smelled flowers. Your back now aches constantly. You've stopped standing straight. The belt no longer helps. When you walk, it's with a tilt, like you're still reaching for the distaff. One afternoon, the village spinner visits. She heard somehow. She always does. She brings a cloth bundle. Inside are 3 skeins of fine flax, already spun. Won't match your thread exactly, she says. But it'll do. You thank her. She looks at your hand, says nothing, then leaves. You finish your last bolt 3 days before the steward returns. You lay the cloth out on the table, smooth the folds, weigh the bundles. Your mother binds them with string. You don't watch her. You stare at the blue dye in the corner. Untouched. The steward arrives with his guards. They say nothing at first. Just count, inspect, lift a bolt and nod. Acceptable, he says. You nod back. He hands you a token, a coin with the Lord's crest. Not payment. Recognition. You hold it for a moment, then set it down. They leave. You don't move for a long time. Later, your mother places the token on the mantel. For your children to see, she says. You don't answer. You think of the blue dye, and you wonder, how many women spin their bodies into cloth until their names curl like broken thread? And how many were remembered only by what they made, not who they were? You don't spin the next day. Your mother notices but says nothing. She sets bread on the table and hums a psalm you learned years ago. You try to eat, but your fingers still tremble from the cramping. You tear the crust instead, slowly, and leave most of it untouched. It's strange, you think, how quiet the house is without the spindle humming. You can hear birdsong now, the fire crackling, the wind poking through the thatch. You hadn't realized how much thread filled the silence. Your back still bends. It doesn't know how to be straight anymore. When you reach for your cup, your shoulder protests. You drink anyway. By midday, the ache in your hand fades slightly. Enough to move, but not to spin. You walk outside for the first time in what feels like weeks. The road curves down past the rye fields, brown and stiff in the spring wind. Your feet are unsure at first, but the ground welcomes you back. A neighbor's dog barks. Children chase each other around a cart. You sit beneath a hawthorn tree. Your basket is with you. Not the big one. A smaller one, the one your mother gave you on your 12th birthday. You haven't used it in years. Inside is the indigo dye. Still sealed. You open it now. It smells sharp, earthy, and deep, like forgotten water. You haven't dyed anything for yourself in 3 years. But today is different. Today, there are no bolts due. No steward watching. No promises made on your behalf. You reach into your basket again. Pull out a handful of raw flax. Not the finest, not bleached or combed. Just the beginnings. The kind you usually save for apprentices. You set the bundle in your lap and begin, not to spin, to tie. You knot the fibers into loops. Nothing useful, just shape, form, gesture. You dip one into the dye. Let it sit. Watch the blue seep in like sky through fog. When you lift it, your hands stain. The first time your hands stained, your aunt scolded you. Said real spinners kept their hands clean. You were 10. You cried. Now the stains feel honest. When you return home, you hang the blue knots near the hearth. Your mother eyes them. What's this? A reminder, you say. She doesn't ask of what. That evening, the village spinner visits again. She brings news. The manor is hiring permanent weavers, paid in coin, small, but steady. They want men, she says, but they might listen to names. You shake your head. My back won't last, she nods. Sets a bundle on your table. Then teach someone. You unwrap it. Raw flax, good quality. Enough for 6 skeins. You don't ask where she got it. You spend the next week teaching your youngest brother how to card fibers. His fingers are clumsy but gentle. You think he'll be good. The week after, a neighbor girl asks about your blue knots. You give her one. Keep it near your bed, you say. It'll remind you your hands made something. She asks what it means. You pause, then say, it means I was here. By summer, your back still aches, but you've stopped hiding it. You walk bent, but proud. You no longer measure your worth in ells or bolts or tokens from stewards. You keep spinning sometimes, but only what you choose. No more quotas. No more silent transactions. Just thread and blue and hands that still remember how to move, even if they shake. Your mother finds the coin from the steward on the mantel. You've etched something into its surface, just a single line, a mark of the woman who made more than linen. She smiles, leaves it there. You wonder, how many women disappeared into thread and wool and bolts of cloth that lined other people's beds? How many were remembered only when their hands stopped moving? And you think, even if they don't remember my name, they'll remember the shape of what I left behind. You arrive before sunrise. The sky is still the color of soot, and the frost has not yet let go of the cobblestones. Your cart creaks behind you, 2 wheels, 1 axle, and 12 baskets of everything you could dry, brine, or bake the day before. Dried pears, salt cod, hard cheese wrapped in linen, 6 small jars of vinegar, and 7 lengths of good wool cord. You're not the first to arrive, but close. The baker's boy is setting up his table. He nods, not warmly, just enough to say, I see you, and I know why you're here. You nod back. Your name is Idonea. You are 34, a widow, and unlike most of the other women in this market, you own your stall. You didn't inherit it in the usual way, not through sons or cousins or charity. You bought it, with coin. After your husband died and left nothing but debts, you worked for 3 years under Mistress Arla the vinegar seller, sweeping floors and learning weights. Then you sold everything, his old boots, your wedding belt, the sheep, and bought a square of dirt at the edge of the market. That was 5 years ago. Now your pitch has a name, Widow's Measure. You hang the sign yourself each morning. The letters are uneven, but honest. Painted dark blue on wood your brother carved. You run a string from the corner of your cart to the crooked pole that marks your space. The string isn't for protection. It's for signaling boundaries. Everyone knows not to cross a widow's string without asking. You set the scales. The good ones. Brass, well-oiled, balanced, true. You clean the counter with vinegar-soaked cloth. Place your coins in a cloth pouch beneath a floorboard you loosened, yourself. And you wait. The sun rises slowly. The town square begins to breathe. Boots scuff, goats bleat, shutters fly open one by one. Women arrive with rush baskets and husbands in tow. A fishmonger starts shouting. The scribe's apprentice spills ink on a butcher's table. The world returns to noise. You speak only when needed. Your prices are fixed. No haggling. That's the rule. They respect it. Mostly, a man, new to town, stops at your stall, looks at your pears. How much? He asks. 2 farthings for 4. He scoffs. You're charging like a merchant. I am one. He pauses, frowns, then moves. On later, you hear him complaining to another vendor. You ignore it because others come. Mistress Tilda from the mill house. She buys vinegar and a skein of cord. The washerwoman, her sleeves wet, trades a smoked herring for a slice of your goat cheese. A child hands you a broken farthing and a handful of acorns. You give her a cord loop anyway. By midday, your baskets are half empty. You sit on your stool, eat a slice of barley loaf, and watch the market breathe. The men shout louder. The women lean closer. The priest passes with a nod. The tanner spits too close to your stall. You don't flinch. You carry your widowhood like a sword, because no one owns you now. But that doesn't mean they don't try. This afternoon, Master Berold stops by. He's a grain seller. Big shoulders, big mouth, always chewing something. "You'd do better under my tent," he says again, not for the first time. "I'd do worse," you answer. "I'd protect your stall." "I don't need protecting," he grins. "You don't know who envies you." You look him in the eye. "I don't care who does." He laughs, loud and fake, then moves on. But you note it, because envy is not a compliment. It's a warning. Later, the market reeve stops by. A younger man, but sharp. He carries a wax tablet and walks like someone who's memorized the cost of a lie. "Idonea," he says. "You're late on your stall fee." "No, I'm not," you reply. He raises an eyebrow. You reach beneath the board. Pull the pouch. Count out exactly what's due. Hand it to him in 2 equal stacks. He frowns. "You keep exact accounts." "I can't afford not to." He nods. Then, softer. "Watch Berold." You nod back. When the sun sets, you pack what's left. You count every coin, every crumb. You load the cart yourself. You leave 1 pear for the priest's dog. A tradition. Not pious, just habit. Your walk home is quiet. Your back aches. Your ankles burn. Your shoulders remember the weight of lifting baskets alone for 5 years. You light your fire, sit by the window, and you wonder how many widows kept their towns running while no one wrote down their names. How many markets stood because a woman chose to count her coin instead of cry. You sip broth, and tomorrow you'll do it all again. It rains before dawn. Not a soft spring drizzle, but a hard, spiteful kind of rain. The kind that turns stalls into swamps and spreads mildew through sacks of barley. You wake to the sound of it hammering the shutters. You know before your feet touch the floor that the market will be miserable today. But you go anyway. You always do. You wrap your headscarf tighter, fasten your cloak, and double-line your cart with an oilskin sheet you stitched from old tent fabric. The wheels squelch through the mud as you haul the load up the slope toward the square. The rain has already made rivals out of neighbors. The sausage seller is shouting at the fishwife for taking too much space under the shared awning. The onion man has parked his cart sideways to block the wind and earned 3 curses for it. The sky is gray and bruised, and your hands are already soaked. You set up anyway. You stack the vinegar jars in a tight triangle. You brush the rain off the basket lids. You hang your sign, widow's measure, with a new bit of cord. Blue. From Ilsa, the spinner's daughter. She brought it to you last week as thanks for a honey cake you gave her mother. You do not expect a good day, but you expect a day. Around mid-morning, the reeve returns. This time he's not alone. A scribe walks behind him carrying a small box and a sheet of parchment. They're checking licenses. It's a new thing. Some order from the baron, no doubt. Market formalization, they call it. You're not worried. You've always paid your fee. But now they want names, trade counts, written proof. You reach under your floorboard and pull out your ledger. It's not fancy, just pages of scratched lines and half-legible sums. But every mark is real, every entry dated, every sale remembered. The reeve frowns. You keep books? Better. Then you're steward, you reply, not unkindly. The scribe looks impressed. He copies your totals onto his page and adds a note. Independent account holder. The reeve nods. Good. Just keep better ink. You nod. Later, the baker's wife stops by. She's crying. Her husband slipped on the stones, broke his leg. The apprentices are running the ovens and the loaves are half-baked. She needs vinegar and salt, but she has no coin. You hand her the goods anyway. Pay when you can. She stares, then leans forward quickly and kisses your hand. You wipe it on your apron afterward, but not because it's dirty, just to hide the shaking. By noon, the rain stops. The wind picks up. The banners drip from the gables. You hunch in your cloak, counting the coins you've taken. Less than usual, but enough. Then Berold appears. His boots are clean. Again. He stands in front of your stall too long. Doesn't speak. Just stares at your jars like he's memorizing them. Finally, he says, "Nice stall you've got. Shame if it caught mildew." You raise an eyebrow. "Selling curses now?" He laughs. No. Just saying, weather turns fast." You say nothing. He steps closer. You've got your fingers in every pocket. Tilda, the spinner's girl, even the reeve's pet scribe. Still, you don't respond. "I hear you're offering credit now," he adds. "Dangerous thing, trust." You lean forward. "Get to your point, Berold." He pauses. His smile hardens. "You're getting in the way. The guild's watching. The scribes talk." You nod. "Let them watch. You'll trip." Then, "I'll fall forward." He scowls. Spits. Walks off. You wait until he's gone. Then you scratch a new line into your ledger. Berold. Still afraid? That evening, you close shop early. Not because of Berold, but because the sky threatens more rain, and your cloak is still damp. As you pack the jars, a girl, maybe 13, approaches. She wears no shoes. Her hair is a tangle. She's shaking. "Do you need work?" You ask before she speaks. She nods. You point to the vinegar crate. "Lift one. If you can carry it without breaking your toes, you can work tomorrow." She tries, staggers, but doesn't drop it. You nod again. "What's your name?" She hesitates. Then, "Giselle." You reach into your apron and hand her a hunk of cheese. "Come at dawn." She takes it like a bird snatching crumbs. Then she runs. Later, at home, you write her name beside your inventory. Not because you're keeping track, but because she deserves to be written somewhere. And you wonder, how many names have slipped through the cracks of inkless books? How many women kept the market turning without ever being counted? You look at your page, and you promise yourself, if no one else records them, you will. Giselle arrives before you do. She's sitting beside your cart when you open the door, legs tucked beneath her, eyes wide and wary. She stands when she sees you, straightens her shift, and says nothing. That's fine. Words are slow to grow in girls like her. They've been trained to listen, not speak. You hand her the rope. She pulls. The cart moves smoother with two. The square is brighter today. The rain has passed, and the stones glisten with leftover puddles. The sky is pale blue, the kind that promises a short spring and an early tax season. You set up as usual. The vinegar jars, the salt fish, the cheeses. You test the scale. Hang. Your sign. Count your coin. But today, there's something new. A second stool, shorter, beside your own. You brought it for her. You don't point to it. She sees it and sits, quietly. She watches as you serve the first few customers. You speak plainly, as always. Your prices remain firm. One man argues. You don't bend. He walks away. Giselle's eyes widen. Later, she whispers, "Don't you lose coin like that?" You shake your head. "If they don't pay me today, they won't respect me tomorrow." She doesn't ask again, but she watches closer. By midday, she's learning. You let her wrap the cheeses, hand over the vinegar, jugs. Speak to children. She listens, mimics, gets better with every hour. When Beryl passes, she stiffens. You don't flinch. He doesn't stop. But he watches. You nod to him. The Reeve visits that afternoon. No scribe this time, just a question. You keeping anyone? On now? You glance at Giselle. Yes. Paperwork will change next season, he says. You'll need to list apprentices. You nod. She's already in the ledger. He smiles. Of course she is. You spend the evening teaching her numbers. You write them in charcoal on the back of fish paper, 1 through 10. Then the symbols for weight. Pounds, stones, half farthings. You explain how a short scale cheats a seller and how to counterbalance. Wet goods. She asks smart questions. You see something in her. Not just need, not just obedience. Fire. That night, she sleeps on the hearth mat, curled around your extra cloak. She doesn't snore. She barely breathes. In the morning, she rises before you, stokes the fire, and counts the empty baskets. You don't smile, but you feel it. The next market day, you let her haggle, once. She misjudges a price. You say nothing. Later, she corrects herself. You nod. Word spreads slowly in towns like yours, but it spreads. The brewer's wife stops by, asks if Giselle will carry jugs for her next week. The candlemaker leaves 2 bits of tallow in thanks for a quiet word with the butcher. The spinner's daughter comes again, just to say hello. You sell more than usual that day. You let Giselle keep 2 farthings for her own. She stares at them like they might bite. You tell her to hide them in her shoe. She does. Then you tell her, buy nothing with them, not yet. Wait until you have enough to choose. Later at home, you add her name to your formal ledger. Not just Giselle. Giselle, apprentice, year 1. You underline it. Not because it matters to anyone else, because it matters to her. In the weeks that follow, your back grows worse. The ache has become a constant now, deep and low, sometimes making your fingers tremble. But Giselle lifts the heavier crates. She ties the sign. She writes the new prices. You begin to sit more. She begins to stand. People don't call it widow's measure anymore. Now they say, go to the widow's stall, or the girl who works with her. The town adjusts. It always does. One morning you sit by the window, ledger open, pages worn soft from use. You look at the names, not the customers, the women. Arla, your first mentor. Tilda, still raising 3 sons. Ilsa, who twisted her back spinning. Giselle, now writing prices without help. No lord will remember them. No statue will be raised, but the scales were fairer because they were there. The bread cheaper, the corners cleaner, the silence less lonely. You close the book. Tomorrow, you will go again. Or Giselle will if your legs don't agree. And you wonder, how many women measured their worth in baskets, not books? How many were counted only in debt, and never in contribution? But you know this. In the stall's ledger, the ink is dry, the numbers honest, and the names all there. And that's enough. The sheep know your voice better than your name. That's the way of things out here. Beyond the village hedge, past the frost line, where the stars sit closer than people and silence grows louder than speech. You're 16, give or take. No one's kept track properly since your mother died. The priest didn't write your birth down. Your father's only records are knots on a birch branch he lost 3 winters ago. But you know the flock, all 47s of them. You can name each one by the way it limps, or chews, or bleats when the moon is out. You carry their stories in your head. One had twins last spring. One lost an ear to frostbite. One, stubtail, likes to sneak behind you and nudge your knees for attention. They're your family now. You sleep beside them more often than not. The hut you were promised, just a shepherd's lean-to near the southern wall, is no bigger than a larder. The roof leaks. The cot is tilted. You share it with a dog named Runt, who's more scar than fur. He doesn't bark much, but he watches. Like you rise before the sun, before the crows, before the frost has left the ground. Your job is simple. Keep them alive. You know the sounds of foxes. You know the prints of wolves. You know which parts of the moor ice over first, and which hollows hold wind that strips the skin from your face. In minutes. Your father used to say shepherding was a man's work, but he drank more than he mended fences. And one day, when the rent came due and he had no coin, he traded you. Not to another family, just to the steward. Work her, he said. She eats little. And so you were handed a staff, a bundle, of rushlights, and 47 sheep. You've been counting them ever since. The steward doesn't visit often, only to check the tally. You keep it on a stick near the pen. 1 notch per head. You carve them deep. It helps when the wind howls, too loud to remember what's alive and what's missing. The sheep mean wool. Wool means tax. So you are not allowed to fail, but you are allowed to freeze. The cloak you wear is 2 seasons too thin. You patched it yourself with twine and scraps from a lost saddlebag. Your boots are uneven. Your fingers crack. At night, when your back aches from hunching over the lambs, you lie awake counting the stars and naming each one after a sheep you've lost. Last year, 7. The steward said, "Acceptable losses." You said nothing. You don't speak much anymore. There's no one to listen. Once, a traveler stopped by, headed north, lost on the road. He asked your name. You told him, "Shepherd." He laughed. "No, your name." You blinked. Thought for a long time, then said, "Don't think I have one." He looked at you, startled, then gave you his bread. You still remember the warmth of it. There are days when the wind is so sharp it makes your teeth ache. You tie a rag over your mouth. You hum songs you barely recall. A woman once sang them. Your mother, perhaps. Or a washerwoman in town. They come back when the sheep are quiet and the sky hangs low. You know not to rest too long. The cold creeps quickly. Once, you fell asleep beside the fire pit and woke to Runt licking the frost from your eyebrows. That night, you slept standing up. You've done it since. Safer. Some girls your age live in town. They carry water, mend linens, sneak kisses behind bakehouses. You carry lambs across frozen streams. You deliver stillbirths in mud. You bury ewes alone. You once stitched your own leg after a briar tore it open. No one writes stories about girls like you, but the sheep live. Every morning, you count them again. 47. Still, and you wonder, how many girls walked these moors before you, counting by breath, by hoof, by heartbeat? How many faded into the wind without ever saying their names aloud? You tighten your belt, runt growls at the rising moon, and you whisper to the dark, "Still here." The first lamb comes too early. You find it in the dew, still steaming, legs folded like old string, its mother nosing at it with more confusion than care. You crouch beside it, slide your cloak around its trembling body, and whisper nonsense until its ears twitch. Spring wasn't due for 2 more weeks, but the sheep don't ask permission. You've done this before. Cut the cord with a knife older. Then you cleared the nose, rubbed the limbs until they stiffen with life. The lamb whines. The ewe steps back, then forward again, bleats once, and the spell is sealed. Mother and child, breathing. For now, you mark the birth on the tally stick with a shallow notch. Pulse 1, it's the only kind of math you trust. The next night brings another, twins this time, one strong, one limp. You try, you rub, you breathe into its mouth. Nothing. You bury it in the soft mud behind the hut, while the surviving twin learns to suckle. You mark +1 again. You don't count the dead ones anymore. They make the stick confusing. By the end of the week, the number is 52. You start dreaming of hooves, of wool, of eyes in the dark. Your sleep is shallow, filled with the soft crying of things that aren't there. Runt watches you more closely now. He follows when you fetch water. He doesn't sleep unless your feet are beside him. You wonder, sometimes, if he remembers someone else before you. If he used to belong to a better shepherd. But he stays. He always stays. The lambs keep coming. Some perfect, some strange, born with twisted legs or mouths that won't close. You learn to splint with willow sticks, to feed the weak ones warm, milk with a cloth-wrapped fingertip. You name them, though you never say the names aloud. The best one is Pale Berry. She came out shining like wet quartz and walked within minutes. She follows you now like a dog, bleeding when you vanish from view. You tell her stories, not real ones, just shapes of things. Clouds that look like spoons, trees that creak like they're thinking. She listens, or at least doesn't leave. You don't remember your mother's face, but you remember her hands. They always smelled of rosemary. You keep a small bunch of it tied to the inside of your cloak. You don't burn it. You just keep it close. For memory. One morning you wake to the sound of shouting. Not yours. Voices. Plural. Men. You stand quickly. Runt growls low. You grab your staff. 3 figures approach from the ridge, 2 guards and the steward. He's holding a sheet of parchment and a stick of wax. The guards don't look at you. They go straight to the pen. Begin counting. The steward speaks. You've exceeded the expected yield. You say nothing. He waves the parchment. This is good. Very good. You nod. He steps closer. We'll need wool by midsummer. Your portion has increased. You blink. I haven't sheared them yet. You'll hire help. With what coin? He frowns, as if you've asked something rude. Your flock is manor property. I keep them alive. And the manor thanks you, he replies. Then, you'll get half a penny per fleece. You stare at him. That's robbery. But you say nothing because he's right. The sheep are not yours. You count them, feed them, bury them, but they're not yours. He leaves the parchment behind, pinned under a stone. A lamb eats the corner before you can stop it. You toss it into the fire. That night, you think about running, just a passing thought. You imagine Paleberry beside you, runt ahead, scouting a new path. A cloak with no holes, boots that fit, but there's nowhere to run. No place that needs a girl with 52 sheep and a crooked spine. You settle back into your mat, count the breaths between snores. You think you hear an owl. You think you see your mother's hands in the shadows. You don't move. The lambs need you at dawn, always at dawn. 2 days later, a merchant's wife visits. She's lost a child, still fresh, still bleeding. She heard from the village midwife that the shepherdess, that's you, knows how to keep weak things breathing. You nod once. She kneels, holds out a swaddled bundle. It barely moves. You take it, not because you know what to do, but because no one else does. You warm the child. You feed her goat milk. You wrap her tight and whisper the same nonsense you whisper to lambs. She lives. You don't know for how long, but long enough. The mother leaves 2 coins and half a wheel of cheese. You hide the cheese. You bury 1 coin beneath your cot, and you keep the other in your palm all night. You roll it between your fingers until the edge wears soft. You wonder, how many women lived their whole lives saving things they didn't own, raising things that were sold, feeding mouths that forgot their names. How many shepherds were never called by name, only counted? You turn the coin over, and you whisper to the stars, 52, still breathing, so am I. The first lamb comes too early. You leave without another word. Back at your home, you find your aunt's old paddle. It hangs above the hearth, carved with 3 initials. A.E.B. Annis Eleanor Brewster, your namesake. She fought the guild once, too. They tried to fine her for selling on Sundays. She responded by selling on Saturdays and hosting singing lessons during the sale. You stay up late that night planning. In the morning, a young man arrives at your door. Guild certified. A brewer's son, soft-faced and smug. His name is Aldrich. I'm to be your overseer, he says, holding out a parchment. Shall we begin? You let him in. Show him your workshop, your barrels, your tools. You brew. He watches. He says nothing, except to point out the obvious. You're using more barley than required. You nod. That's why it tastes better. He frowns. Doesn't seem profitable. You shrug. I'm not in this to get rich. I'm in this so no child drinks poisoned water. He says nothing after that. For weeks, he returns, watches, takes notes. But gradually, the tone shifts. He asks questions, real ones, about malt ratios, about herb additions, about how to tell when the mash is ready without a clock. You answer, because knowledge isn't something you hoard. It's something you stir into the pot and pass around. Then one day, you find him waiting at the door with a different expression. They're shutting Edwin down, he says. You blink. Why? Turns out, he says, he really was thinning. His mash. You raise an eyebrow. How'd they find out? Aldrich smiles. Anonymous tip. You smile back. The next festival, the crowd is bigger than ever. Your ale sells out before noon. Aldrich still comes to inspect, but now he brings a mug. He never says thank you. But one day, as he leaves, he pauses and says, if you ever wanted to apply for your own license, I could help. You don't answer. You don't need to, you're already brewing. And you wonder, how many women poured their stories into barrels that no one wrote down? How many saved lives, kept peace, healed hearts with ale and care? You don't need a parchment to prove your worth. You just need a fire, a paddle, and a batch that sings when you stir. The barrel is empty by noon, not just one. All of them. The spring festival draws the town like bees to cider. Your stall near the green is slick with mud and footprints. You've been pouring since dawn, and your hands are sticky with spilled. Ale and coin Aldrich, your guild-assigned overseer, is supposed to be watching you. Instead, he's seated beneath the hawthorn tree with a mug and a notebook that's more doodles than data. He waves lazily when you glance his way. You almost laugh. Almost, but your back aches, and there's still cleanup ahead. The stew vendors. Dog has knocked over one of your rinsing tubs. A boy slips on a peel and nearly hits your cask. You scold him, but gently. He's the apothecary's nephew. You once helped his aunt cure his cough, with beer steeped in thyme. You're not just a Brewster. You're a memory keeper, an unofficial ledger of family crises and village joy. A girl no older than 12 approaches with a coin and a question. Do you sell to women? You blink. Of course. She glances back over her shoulder. At her mother, perhaps, or a watching brother. Even to girls? You nod. Especially. She places the coin down like a secret. You hand her a small jug, half full, enough for her mother's stew or her father's aching knees. She smiles, not childishly but knowingly, and runs off with her prize. That evening, after the fire dies and the last mug is rinsed, Aldrich lingers. No, he says. You don't have to keep brewing like this. You could marry, pass it on, or stop entirely. You glance at him, steady. Why would I stop? He shrugs. Just thinking. It's hard work. So is childbirth. He flushes. I'm not tired, you say, even though you are. I'm determined. He doesn't reply, but he nods before leaving. That, too, feels like a kind of apology. Back home, you write something on the back of an old ledger page, a thought that came to you while skimming foam earlier. No man will remember the recipes, but women do. You fold the paper, tuck it into your aunt's old brewing paddle sheath. Some legacies don't need ink. The following week, the guild sends another letter. This one is formal, stamped, and sealed. They're offering you a license. Not a temporary one, a real one. You stare at the parchment for a long time. Then you laugh. A sound as rich as brown ale, deep and unexpected. The license doesn't erase the past. It doesn't ease the years your aunt brewed in shadows. It doesn't bring back the girl you were when you first carried hops in a basket bigger than your torso. But it is something. You frame it. Not because you need the proof, but because other women will see it. And they'll ask, and you'll tell them how to mash, how to stir, how to wait. You won't hide the burn marks on your forearms or the ache in your knees. Those are part of the recipe, too. Your daughter, if you have one, will not inherit coin, but she will inherit process. She'll inherit patience and grit, and a paddle carved with initials too faded to read. One day, she might be asked, "Why not let the men do it?" And she'll answer, calmly, like a woman who's boiled and tested and brewed through decades of noise, because men water it down. And you wonder, how many untaxed hours, unsung batches, and unnamed Brewsters made life livable in towns like this? How many of their stories, like yours, only survive in flavor?